Hello, today we are continuing in our series on David, and we will be looking at 2 Samuel 11 and 2 Samuel 12. So you might want to just find that and get those ready. The last time I spoke to you, I said that I would recommend the NRSVA version, which is just a bit more accurately translated to the Hebrew. So if you're on using an app or online, then you might want to switch to that. That's what I'm reading from today, but other versions are absolutely fine. There'll just be a difference in perhaps some of the words that I use. So just to recap David's story so far, he was anointed as king at 15 years old. And then we saw him move into the king's house and work as a servant for him. He defeated Goliath, and he continued as a servant for King Saul until Saul became jealous. David had to flee for his own life and ended up living in the wilderness for about 7 to 10 years, while Saul put a lot of time and money and resources into trying to find and kill David. Last week, we saw David finally becoming king after about 15 years of waiting. And this was the start of a long and successful era as king of Israel. He was well respected. God was pleased with him and promised his name would be made great. He led his armies into battles and he defeated enemies. He did a great job of being king. And unfortunately, today marks a significant turning point in David's story, and it's easy to mark it really simply as kind of good guy turns bad, but we all know that life is more complicated than that. But I think today we'll see more of the human side of David, and we'll be able to explore what's going on to get him to this point and what happens afterwards. So 2 Samuel 11, just like last time, I'm going to do this as an exegesis, so I'm just going to read the story through really slowly and pause and explain a bit more about what's going on and some of the language that's been used here to help us to understand it more. So it says, in the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab with his officers and all Israel with him. They ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. So we start here with a juxtaposition. We've got the kings going out to battle, but David remaining at Jerusalem. So right from the start of this story, we are told David is not where he should be. He should be at battle with his army. And up until now, he has always been at battle with his army. He was known as a great leader, warrior, fighter. But for whatever reason, he has not gone to battle. He has remained in Jerusalem. And this, we don't know why. The author doesn't tell us why. And it's left open for us to guess, I think, and to wrestle with and wonder, why is he not where he is supposed to be? And then it continues, it says, it happened late one afternoon, David rose from his couch. And we're on the same theme here. It's late in the afternoon, but David has been sleeping. Again, David is not where he's supposed to be. People aren't supposed to sleep in the middle of the day. I think all of us love a cheeky afternoon nap, but there's again another suggestion. Why is he getting up so late? Why is he not where he's supposed to be? And he was walking about on the roof of the king's house, and he saw from the roof a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful. And I just want to make it really clear: David is on his roof, but there is no indication that the woman is on her roof. Absolutely none at all. From his roof, he can see a woman bathing. It's very unlikely she'd be on her roof. She'll be in her bathroom. She'll be in her own house, and he'll be looking through a window. The king's house will have been the highest house, the tallest house in the city. And so that would give him a vantage point to see probably into lots of spaces. But the fact that it says she was beautiful would indicate she was close enough for there to see that she is beautiful. I also just want to point out the word bathing is kind of used broadly, so it doesn't necessarily mean she was naked in the bath. It could be that she was washing her feet. It could mean different things. It's been left open to our interpretation, but he's seen her and he thinks that she's beautiful. David sent someone to inquire about the woman. it was reported, this is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. So right from the start, we know, and David knows, that she is a married woman. She is married to Uriah the Hittite. The fact that he's a Hittite, all that means is that he is of Babylonian descent, probably. Like Hittite was part of the Babylonian culture, but the name Uriah means Yahweh is my light. So he follows God. It's just that he might have some Hittite ancestry, and he's become known as Uriah the Hittite. It's also suggested that Uriah was in what is called the elite 30 in the army. So he was one of the best fighters in the army. And we could assume, therefore, that David would know him, given that David has always gone to war with his army. He probably knew who the best fighters were. So it's not just, oh, that's who it is, but it's like, you know her husband and you know that he's out fighting right now. So David sent messengers to fetch her, regardless of all of this, and she came to him and he lay with her. And then it says in brackets, now she was purifying herself after her period. And this is a little author's note to us, the reader, just to let her know. It's kind of like as an aside, but basically saying she'd not long had her period, and because she was doing her purification ritual that you have to do after you have your period, which means she wasn't already pregnant because she just had a period. So it's the author's note just going, and just in case you're wondering, she definitely wasn't pregnant at this point. Then she returned to her house, the woman conceived, and she sent and told David, I am pregnant. We could ask some questions about why has she told David that she is pregnant? Is she expecting something? Did she just want him to know? Obviously, she's a married woman, but we get very little information. In fact, we get very little information about this woman who is only named once here and only named once in the whole passage, Bathsheba. After that, she's referred to as the woman or Uriah's wife. So she's not given much of a voice or given much of a description. She's kind of overlooked in a story that's largely about her, unfortunately. So then it says, David sent word to Joab, that's the head of the army, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked Joab, and the people fared. David asked how Joab and the people fared and how the war was going. So there's a bit of a pretense going on here. He's like, oh, I've called you back to just find out how things are going on at war. Is everything going well? And then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. Now, wash your feet is a funny euphemism for go and have sex. Go home, enjoy it, just have a night off. Go and have sex with your wife, go and rest, go and relax. And so this is the start of the cover-up. So he's actually got Uriah back to go and get him to have sex with his wife, so then it can look like that baby is Uriah's and David is free from the sin that he has committed. But Uriah went out of the king's house, and there followed him a present from the king. In other translations, it says a gift of food. So it's likely to be some sort of food gift that Uriah could take home to his wife, treat her, lavish her, and then they could have sex. But Uriah slept at the entrance of the king's house with all the servants of his lord and did not go down to his house. When they told David, Uriah did not go down to his house. David said to Uriah, you have just come from a journey. Why did you not go down to your house? And so I think it's interesting. It says, did not go down to his house, did not go down to his house, did not go down to his house. And whenever we have repetition like that, it would be the same as putting something in bold or italics. It's like really trying to press that point home. He definitely did not go down to his house. Uriah said to David, the ark and Israel and Judah remain in the booths, so remained out at war, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are camping in the open field. Shall I then go to my house to eat and drink and lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do such a thing. He is loyal. He's loyal to the king. He is loyal to his fellow soldiers. He is loyal to the Ark of the Covenant because he mentions the Ark there and to Israel. He's like, while there is war going on, while people are fighting, I will not go home. I will not rest. I am part of this. And I would rather sleep on the doorstep and then get back to fighting. So the cover-up has not worked. So then David said to Uriah, remain here today also, and tomorrow I will send you back. How kind of him. He invites him to spend another day not doing anything. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day, and on the next day, David invited him to eat and drink in his presence, and he made him drunk. And in the evening, he went out to lie on his couch with the servants of the Lord, but he did not go down to his house. So this is like plan B. So plan A was just send him home, send him with some food, see if he'll sleep with his wife. Plan B, get him drunk and see if he'll sleep with his wife. But even when drunk, Uriah remains loyal, remains faithful, remains doing the right thing, which is a stark contrast really to what David's doing. David isn't drunk, but he's already not done the right thing, and he's slept with someone else's wife. So now we go to plan C. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And in the letter he wrote, "Set Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting and then draw back from him so that he may be struck down and die." So Uriah then heads back to the war, holding the very letter with the instructions for his own death. How awful is that? After coming home, after all his faithfulness, he's now got the instructions to die, and he gives that to Joab without reading it, we assume. As Joab was besieging the city, he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew there were valiant warriors. And the men of the city came out and they fought with Joab. So the valiant warriors on the other side. And so they came out and they fought with Joab, and some of the servants of David among the people fell. Uriah the Hittite was killed as well. So the plan has worked. He's put Uriah in a really dangerous situation right on the front line with other fighters, and several fighters, including Uriah, have died. Then Joab sent and told David all the news about the fighting, and he instructed the messenger. So this is what Joab tells the messenger to tell to David. "When you have finished telling the king all the news about the fighting, then, if the king's anger rises, if he says to you, 'Why did you go so near the city to fight? Did you not know they would shoot from the wall? Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerubbaal?' This is something that happened previously. 'Did not a woman throw an upper millstone on him from the wall so that he died at Thebez? Why did you go so near the wall?'" So Joab is scared that King David is going to be like, "Why did you do such a stupid thing? Did you not learn from this other thing that happened when people died? Why did you do that?" So Joab's worried for his own life. And so he says, "Then you shall say, 'Your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead too.'" So he's telling the servant, make sure you say Uriah's dead. That's the message. And so what we've got now is Joab has become complicit with this plan. This servant has become complicit with the plan. More and more people are getting sucked in to this whole thing that's playing out here. So the messenger went, he came and told David all that Joab had sent him to tell. The messenger said to David, "The men gained an advantage over us and came out against us in the field. But we drove them back to the entrance of the gate. Then the archers shot at your servants from the wall. Some of the king's servants are dead, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also." So he delivers a message, make sure he presses that point home that Uriah is dead. And David said to the messenger, he wasn't angry, he said, "You shall say to Joab, 'Do not let this matter trouble you.'" He lets him off the hook. "For the sword devours now one and another." He's saying, these things happen at war. Sometimes some people get killed on their side, some people get killed on our side. But he says, "Press your attack on the city and overthrow it." So he encourages him to carry on fighting. Keep going. Don't worry, I'm not angry with you. And then we finish with, when the wife of Uriah heard that her husband was dead, she made lamentation for him. When the mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore his son. So there was a period of mourning, and then she's moved in and she's become one of several wives of David, and she has that child, a son, with him. And again, her name isn't mentioned here. She's given a voice. She's got a very passive role in this story, which I think speaks to the role of women in the Old Testament, which is a bigger conversation that happens. So there's a lot that has gone on in there. I'm not going to go through chapter 12 in the same way, just for time, but it is worth looking at it, because what we've seen in chapter 11 is the sin and what David does, and what we see in chapter 11 is the consequences of that sin, and they're delivered by Nathan the prophet. remember I said last time, it was often the prophets that brought the judgment when people had not followed God's way. So God uses a prophet, Nathan, who comes, he tells this story to David to kind of paint the picture of someone doing something bad, and asks David what should happen to this man that's done this bad thing. And David's like, he should die. And then Nathan's like, it is you, and reveals that the story is really about David. And Nathan kind of reflects David's sin back to him, and David's like, oh no. And then he delivers the news, because David repents and he says, I've sinned against the Lord. And Nathan says, the Lord has taken your sin away. So he forgives him. You're not going to die. But because by doing this, you have shown utter contempt for the Lord, the son born to you will die. That was that's verse 14 in chapter 11. So this is a really sad part of the story, is when in the covenant, in the old covenant, when there is sin, then there is consequences. And if you don't follow God's way, then there is judgment and there is punishment. And in this case, the punishment is the son that will die, which is deeply sad, because that means that Bathsheba is suffering. That means that kid will suffer. Other people around will suffer. And the story continues. And it says on the seventh day, the child died. It's awful. And I think there's, lots of conversation that we can have around why is it someone else that suffers for what David has done. And we do have to remember this is all part of the old covenant, and we live in the new covenant under the grace of Jesus now. This basically is what we've seen here is the turning point. And although David repents here, there are many more consequences to come after this around David and the other sons that he has. Bathsheba does then go on to have another child, who is Solomon, who is the future king, who takes over the kingship from David when David dies. And Bathsheba does have more of a role to play later on. So I'm just going to hand over to you now to discuss. There is so much in here that we can wrestle with. There's lots that is unanswered, and I think that's okay. I think that there's loads of room for us, the readers, to kind of grapple with it and like the gaps really, and fill them in for ourselves. As ever, we're going to use that tummy response, TUMMY. So we'll start by thinking about the people in the story, thinking about David, think about Bathsheba, think about Uriah. I love to think about Uriah because he's such a contrast, his character, to where David's at right now. Think about how David has got here, because you don't just wake up one day and act like this. So what might have gone wrong already? Like, how might have this have happened? And then we'll be thinking about us, the readers, and what does it kind of teach us on a bigger level, not me personally, but what can we learn from it? And then we can get into me and my response. If there's anything I've said that you don't understand, I'm really sorry. Please do ask each other in the group. And I just hope you have a great discussion.